about property is one that I get quite a lot. And normally the first question is property a good investment? Well, my answer would be that property is definitely a good investment, but just don't make the mistake of thinking that the home you live in is that you should actually never see that as part of your investment portfolio. It's a very good asset to have, and most people's lives, that would be the biggest asset that they would ever own. But the problem is that an investment portfolio is there for the good times and the bad times. For instance, if you're really in trouble, you need to be able to access your investment portfolio. And that is where a home, and especially the home that you live in, is not going to help you. It's not liquid. It's not easy to just put it in the market. You are so dependent on what property prices are then. Your property might be in the market for a long time before you're able to sell it. So what I would say, yes, property is a good investment, but don't see property as almost the only investment you have, because you also need diversification, and you also need other asset classes in that portfolio. If you're really serious about property specifically as your investment portfolio, then you need to have a portfolio. You need to actually own a second or a third property in order to be able to start benefiting from it. Why is that? Well, the home you live in is actually not going to be able to bring in much income. So you need a second property that you probably rent out, that you can then use. And some people speculate with property. They would go and buy a house, fix it up, and then sell it. I would just always warn that when you calculate how much profit you made from selling a property, don't forget to take into account all of the fees and all of the costs that you had, the hidden cost. What did it cost you in transfer duties when you bought the property? If you borrowed some money on it, you need to also take into account the interest you paid on it, the rates and taxes, and everything else that you spent on that property need to be taken into account to determine whether you really made a good profit on it. For the normal person out there, there's a much easier way to invest in property, and that is to take your money and invest it in a property unit trust fund. We have a very successful, one of the top property unit trust funds in South Africa we have here at Momentum Investments. And why is that good? Well, firstly, you don't need a huge amount of capital to invest in it. You can invest in it with 1,000 Rand a month debit order, or maybe just a 20,000 Rand capital layout. So very different to when you buy a physical property. You can get access to a wide portfolio of properties by investing in a property unit trust fund. So let me explain a little bit more. What we have is a team of analysts, a team of fund managers. What they do is they look at the entire property market in South Africa, and we buy stakes in properties. Often we develop those properties ourselves. Often our portfolio own those properties. But here's how it works. There could be shopping centers, commercial property, residential developments could be in there, factories could be in there. So the benefit you have is that with a little bit of money, you get a wide exposure to a variety of different properties in the property market without actually taking that risk on yourself. If you look at a well-diversified investment portfolio, I would never have one without some property exposure in it, and there's a very good reason for it. Property as an asset class behaves very differently to what happens in the equity market. It behaves differently to cash. So in a well-diversified investment portfolio, an element of property is always a very good idea. But here the choice you need to make is whether you're going to own it outside of your investment portfolio by owning your own property, or whether you're going to rather leave it to the experts by buying into a property unit trust fund and make that part of your overall portfolio.